World of fear, fear me not. I just want to take your fear away, heal you from it. Now in your next life you won't be afraid of it anymore, I whispered into her ear, slowly wiping her tears off her terrified face. She flinched as my hand made contact with her skin. Loudly sobbing, the young woman tried to move my hand from her face, with no success. She was mine now, till I don't want her anymore. She's mine to do whatever I want, and all I want to do is help her get rid of her fears. But she doesn't understand that. Stupid girl. Why doesn't she see how much I care for her and only want to help her see and experience the best of the world? And she can't do that when she is afraid of so many things in the world. She doesn't even know or can't remember anymore how many fears I have cured her from already. Silly things like dogs, drowning, but also asphyxiation, starvation, dehydration, and being buried alive. She had survived them all, and now she wasn't afraid of them anymore.
Why can't you just let me go?
Pleaded the sobbed young woman, her shoulder-length brown hair sticking against her tear-covered face.
What do you want from me? Just let me go. I won't tell a soul. Please, I just want to go home.
You know I won't let you leave. You're not cured yet. I can't have you be running around the world being afraid of things. I'm just here to heal you from them. Can't you understand? I just want to help you. I just want to save you from the world of fears. I stroked the woman's hair smooth and laid her down again on the ground. The metal chain attached to the wall to her ankle clinked on the ground as the woman scooched into the corner, trying to hide herself from me. The young woman continued to sob and mumble quietly into her arms, her body shaking from the sobs and probably the cold. I had given her a blanket a few weeks ago so that she could warm herself up at night, but she refused to use it. Well, that's her problem. But seeing her shiver on the ground made me angry. I tried to be so good to her, but she just continuously refuses my help. Of course, I understand her position. She was taken by an unknown person, held in their basement for the past 3 weeks, given food and clothing for the exchange, that I cure her from her fears. And I managed to do just that. The day I brought her here, I told her that she could leave the minute she wasn't afraid of her fears anymore, but she just didn't want to cooperate. I sat down on a chair by the door and watched her, huddled in the corner of the dark room. The moment I saw her on the street 3 weeks ago, I knew that it was her. She was a person I was meant to save from the world of fears. She mesmerized me, her brown hair, her green eyes. The way she viewed the world and interacted with it was just beautiful to see, until I saw the way she acted when she was afraid. In that moment, I knew that I had to fix her. I made up my mind that today was the day that would take her last fear away from her. Oh, what a beauty that this is going to be. I finally set her free from the fears of the world. It was going to be beautiful but gruesome. I couldn't wait to hear her begging again and her screams. Her screams were music to my ears. I wish I could just hear them forever and ever. Fire really was the best fear to take last. It was one of the worst fears of the world, to suffocate on the smoke that settles in the lungs, unable to breathe while the flames lick against the skin, melting the skin off the bones, leaving beautiful wounds on the body that take years to heal and will always be present. Fire was a reminder of a lifetime, something that a person has to appreciate, to care for and respect. Otherwise, it would lash out and harm anything in its way. I couldn't wait to set her free from her fear of fire. Excitement rushed through my body as I opened a large metal door that kept my girl safe from the world. The young woman was still huddled in the corner of the room, the farthest place away from the door. How funny it was to think that she would think that it would keep her safe and away from me. Her eyes widened in fear as she saw me step closer to her. Her face twisted in fear as she tried to hide further in the corner, but the chain around her ankle prevented her from moving her legs closer to her body. My sweetheart, today is the day that I will set you free from your last fear. I walked over to the wall that her chain was attached to and undid the chain. I wrapped the chain around my hand and looked over to the young woman. She was watching me quietly. She was extremely pale. Her hair fell limp against her shoulder, and her eyes held no light anymore. She looked like the shell of a person that I became so fascinated with. Once I rid her of the fear of fire, she will become who she was before. I can only imagine how thankful she will be to me that she will be no longer afraid of anything. Come on now, it's time. I pulled on her chain, and the girl fell on the floor screaming. She struggled against the chain, but I was stronger than her and pulled the chain, and she slid on the floor. She tried to grab the floor or anything that could stop her from leaving the room. I continued to drag her into a large basement. I locked her chain around a column while she screamed and yelled, fighting against the chain around her ankle, trying to escape and run away. Stay here, girl. I'm going to get everything ready for you, I said, smiling to the girl while I dragged the logs of wood that laid around the room, around the column, stacking them into a large pile until I was satisfied with its height, stuffing in hay and smaller twigs so that it would burn quickly. I looked over to the girl, smiling. She had quiet tears streaming down her face as her eyes followed my movements around the basement. It seemed like she had accepted of what is to come. It's almost done. You don't have to wait any longer, sweetheart. Just a bit longer, then you are free forever. The only answer I received from her was a quiet whimper that quickly disappeared into silence. Finally, it was time. The logs of fire were finally placed how I wanted them, around a column in the center of the basement. Smiling out of excitement, I walked over to the girl, unlocked her chain, and dragged her to the column. It seemed like she had come out of her shell again. As the closer she got to the column, she started squirming, screaming, yelling, crying, and begging.
Please don't do this. Please. I'm begging you. I'm good. I'll be really good. I'll do everything you want me to do. Just please don't do this. Please, please.
The young woman begged me, but I don't care. I can't wait anymore to strip her of this fear. She was going to be thankful once she realized that everything I have done to her was for the best. She struggled as I lifted her up on the logs, chaining the metal chain around the column tightly so that she couldn't move and try to escape. Her panic rose as I poured the lighter fluid over her. Her screams rang like music in my ears. Oh, how beautiful they are. Now you will be free of your fears. Now you will be perfect. I gave her a big smile. I caressed her face one last time, remembering how her skin felt against my hand before stepping down off the logs, while she struggled against the metal chains and screamed out of panic. I lit up my lighter. The small flame flickered in the air. One last look to the girl. Panic flicked in her eyes. I threw the lighter onto the log. The lighter fluid lit up immediately. The hay caught fire and the logs slowly after. What a beautiful sight it was, seeing the flames consume more of the logs and become bigger. The closer the flames reached the girl, the more she struggled against the chains. The flames started to lick at her skin as they rose. Just a minute longer, and the girl will be entirely on fire, free from her fear. I couldn't wait to see that. How beautiful she looked. More and more of her clothing caught on fire, and the louder she screamed, begging me to free her, to save her from this hell. but all I did was watch her skin melt off her bones like candle wax. Sadly, only a few minutes after I set the fire, the girl was quiet, no longer struggling against the chains that burned into her body, no longer screaming for mercy. I stepped closer to the fire. The heat felt nice against my skin. And I looked at the girl. Her eyes were open. Her entire skin burned, scorched black. Her mouth moved, but no sound ever came out. Her eyes were filled with pain, closing every second and opening again. Now you are free of the world of fears, I said quietly, watching the girl take her last breath, and her eyes closed. Oh, how beautiful she looked.